Hey everybody, Sayre Nova again. And this week we're going to talk about a Triumph Custom, a 1968 to 1970 plus a 72 front end, a little bit of a Bitsa, as they say. But we'll talk about why it's here in a minute. But before we do, we just kind of want to look at this thing and maybe talk about the Triumph as a platform for custom builds. A lot of times, especially in the States here, when you hear custom bike, you think Harley, you think Orange County choppers, you think these big monstrosities of things with 2,000 cc motors and just long, huge things. And while those are valid motorcycles, there's a whole world of customs that are much smaller and different and lighter, perhaps. There were, back in the day, in the 60s and 70s, the heyday of the chopper, there was a bunch of customs that weren't Harleys. They were, anything you could think of. And people who are into Honda 750s know that was a good popular platform for the choppers with frames like the Amen Saviors, stuff like that, and BSAs, etc. You name it. But Triumph has always been a relatively popular brand in the United States. So there was a bunch of Triumph choppers. Now, my personal flavor on machines tends to be towards machines that are a little bit lighter, not super heavy. So I like these better than the typical big old chopper that we mentioned in the beginning. And I also, if it is going to be a Harley chopper, I like a Sportster chopper. I think they're much they just look cooler. They're agile, they're light, nothing extra going on. Kind of like the essence of a cafe racer. The essence of a chopper or a bobber should be less, not more. So I'm not super into ornate stuff, frilly details, things that don't need to be there. So when I see this, I get excited. This is, it's a really good example of a homemade one, homemade custom. Not a lot of custom fabrication, not a lot of stuff like that some of the high-end builders really get into, which is cool. But it has the elements of just a really simple machine. Looks cool and looks better with a front end on it, but and also has this unpainted bare metal semi-rusted patina to it, which is cool and also hides a lot of the decay that happens when you own a bike from the 60s or 70s. So it kind of it looks the same 10 years from now as it did 10 years ago, and it's kind of cool. Why people would choose one of these? I mean, people who were perhaps around at the time may have a better answer on. I don't know if Triumphs were cheaper than, say, a Sportster at the time. Was it just cheaper to get one, or did you get one because you wanted a lighter bike? I mean, if you're going to build a bobber or a chopper, you're already throwing some handling out the window. You're not getting into a race bike or a cafe racer where you want to get through corners faster and stuff like that. So the weight becomes less of an issue. But it doesn't mean you don't want to ride it quickly, and maybe just like the way it feels better too. There's a very different feel between a 883 Ironhead Sportster and a 650 Triumph. They just feel incredibly different, even though they're both pushrod, air-cooled twin motors with roughly the same horsepower. I wasn't alive during that time, so I can't tell you why you would do it then. There's a big history of Triumph in the United States. Even in the outlaw image, the Wild One with Marlon Brando in 1949, or was that 51? Again, way before my time. He was riding a Triumph Thunderbird, and he was the original badass of motorcycles on the screen. And Steve McQueen, American legend, also huge Triumph fan. Can't forget the Fonz on Happy Days, riding a Triumph 500. So, and even in Triumph marketing, they planned their bikes around the American market to a very large extent. Their whole model line was dictated on what we would buy. And as our bikes were getting bigger, because we have so many straight roads here, they were pushing the bikes to 650, 750. That's why this motor had to stretch from its original 500cc planned maximum up to 750cc, the final models of it. It's not a made in America bike, but I consider these Triumphs to be sort of American style bikes from the factory to begin with. So there's a lot of Americana in them from the start. And then, it's a great platform because it's light and it's powerful enough. Love to hear what you guys think about those in the comments if you are into these bikes, because there's a lot to talk about in that area. And as I said, I was not alive for the original period of these things, so that's cool. This particular bike, just go through some of the details of it, has a very bolt-on hardtail frame. This is something you can buy, and Triumphs are really really easy in this regard because the original frame is just held on by a bolt in the top and a bolt in the bottom. You unbolt that, you bolt this on, and you got a whole new rear end there. Hardtails aren't so fun to ride to a lot of people. This becomes your only suspension, and all it's doing is saving your kidneys and your back a little bit. It's doing absolutely nothing to keep your rear wheel on the ground. So you have to ride it very differently. First time I rode a hardtail was a bike very similar to this, a hardtail Triumph, and I hit a pothole in New York City, and the front end came up here, and the rear end came up here and landed here, and suddenly I was doing a little bit of a tank slapper trying to get it all straight again. So a little different, but you know, it looks cool. That's kind of the only reason I can see for it. They also have a front fender as a rear fender, which is common mod. Nicely installed here. Some custom fabrication work to make that fit. It hugs the wheel tire really nicely, and again, is only as much as you need to keep the spray off your back, and maybe not even quite enough. I imagine you get a little bit wet riding this thing, but does just enough, nothing more. You got your handy dandy buck knife. You can't leave home without it, apparently. So that's kind of a cool touch he's got on there. Custom oil tank. This is your whole oil bag for the whole system, for the whole bike. And whereas the stock one would block out this light here, you know, you can see through it. It sort of blends in with the down tube of the frame, and you know, allows you to see some light through it, which gives it a good look. Sprayed with oil. This is a you know, not out of the norm for an old Triumph. Probably a little bit more than you want to ignore. But again, I haven't even looked at this bike mechanically yet. I'm doing some chassis work on it. As we said before, the patina tank, I like this. You know, if you leave this alone forever, it'll rust probably a bit too much. So if you rub it down with a little bit of motor oil, WD-40, every so often, it kind of maintains the balance, stasis of rusting. And I think it looks pretty cool. And then we got this little chopper bobber headlight, kind of spotlight thing here, brushed brass look on it there. Nothing fancy, but it looks cool. It does the job. You know, I will say probably the only thing I don't like about this machine is the mufflers. It's got the sort of universal slip-on reverse cones, and these are fine. These are great. I put these on race bikes before. I put them on my street bikes. But to me, this is something you'd put on a cafe bike, a vintage sport bike, and I would want something more like a drag pipe, maybe even a fishtail, something a little bit more choppery than that, just for the look of it all. But these sound great. They do a good job, so I won't beat them up for it. So yeah, that's sort of the bike in a nutshell. And the reason this bike is here, get to that, is he was in a front end accident a while back, and he was T-boned by a car. Well, he hit a car, put it that way, who pulled out on him, and so he T-boned the car technically. And bent in his front end. He fixed it himself, replaced his forks. I think the wheel might have been okay, but he still has an issue with it. He said the handlebars just don't quite feel straight, and he couldn't figure out why. So I got it here, and I've been taking apart the triple tree, took the forks out. They were very tight getting out, which is a sign that something is binding up in there. And when I took them off, I was able to put two straight edges on the top tree and see that they were not, where are we here? They were not lined up the same. So they're not parallel. So in the accident, the top tree got tweaked. These are made out of cast iron. They're actually fairly soft. Here's his. And you can't tell by looking at it. So it's, you know, you just look at that and you think, oh, that seems fine. So he thought it was fine. But when you really get close to it, you can these two are not in the same plane. They're tweaked like this. And that's going to actually cause your handlebar to tweak, trying to compensate for it. The whole top forks will rock or twist a little bit. So what we have here is I went back and I raided my parts collection of oil and frame BSA Triumph triple trees. And sadly, I find that I am a BSA man in a Triumph world, because what I have is BSA triple trees, which are even the same casting number, but the part number is different. So the stem, I did have one Triumph stem. The stem you see is narrower on the BSA, so I can't just bolt it on directly. I'd have to change the whole thing, and he's got different castings on the lower one. That being said, I have just purchased a new upper Triumph triple tree. So we're going to get that on there. We'll do some, well, hopefully that'll fix it all. We'll do a little bit of tuning work that he wanted done. I'm going to take a quick look at where the oil leaks are coming from so I can give him an idea of what to do with that. And then we'll fire it up and we'll rip it around. We'll definitely get some video of that when we do that. So please let us know your thoughts about this era of choppers and bobbers. If you had one of these back in the day, whether it was Triumph, BSA, Honda, whatever. You had a Kawasaki chopper. I want to hear about it. Love hearing these old stories. And like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Thanks for watching.